Hi everyone, this is Erin, the Tarot Librarian. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is part of my how-to series on tarot for beginning readers. Today we are talking about reversals in tarot. Some people use them, some people don't. Some people interpret them differently than others. I'm going to cover all of that today, give you just some starting point for how you can use reversals in your readings, whether you choose to or not. So what does it mean when a card is reversed? So for most decks that are square or rectangular, it's going to be pretty easy to tell whether a card is reversed. So for example, I'm using my Cats Rule the Earth deck. So this would be right side up, and this would be reversed or upside down. So there are round decks out there. There are some sort of non-traditional decks. I recommend to any new reader that they stick with sort of a traditional deck. Always recommend a Rider-Waite variation, or either the Rider-Waite, the Universal Weight, the Radiant. There's a lot of different, more inclusive versions of cards that really follow the Rider-Waite tradition in terms of symbolism very well. So I would recommend you start with any of those. So that's what a reversal is. But why use them? So this is something that each reader has to decide for themselves. For example, I've been reading for over 35 years. I don't technically use reversals. However, I am always interpreting my cards in relationship to the spread that the card is in, the position of the card in the spread, as well as the relationship between that card and surrounding cards. And so given my experience and using my intuition, I do tend to incorporate some of what people might consider reversed meanings into my interpretations. But the bigger question is, why use reversals? And they can really add some depth to a reading. So, and it's some additional dimension to the story. In essence, you're getting more meaning out of your 78 cards. If you are using reversals, you also want to be aware of how many cards are in reverse versus upright. That can be of significance depending on how you choose to interpret reversals. So, how do you interpret them? There are several schools of thoughts. I'm certainly not going to cover all of them here. I'm going to tell you about a few of the main schools of thought regarding reversed cards. So, one philosophy is that you read reversed cards as the opposite of the upright card. And so let's just pull a card and we'll just give it a shot. So let's see. So I have the Hierophant. The Hierophant is the fifth card of the Major Arcana. And the Hierophant tends to represent traditions and institutions. So if I saw this upright, I might say, maybe someone is seeking education or some sort of structure. Perhaps somebody works for an institution, but there's an idea of rigid rules to this card. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because some people really crave sort of these routines and this sort of bureaucratic way of doing things. Now, if the card was reversed, I might interpret this as you might feel stifled by that, or perhaps you're looking for something that is more organized or maybe more structured or traditional than what you have right now. So those are just some possible interpretations if I'm following the school of thought that opposites could be read as, or reversals could be read as opposites. But there's a couple of other ways that people use reversals as well. And again, this is not completely inclusive. And so some people will interpret them as a delay in timing. So let's just pull a card and see what that might look like. Just pulled the Hierophant again. So we're going to try another card. I'm going to try the Two of Wands. The Two of Wands upright tends to represent somebody who is looking out at their life and envisioning what they want to create. So if we look at our cat here, he's looking out into the world, envisioning the world that he wants to bring forth. So it's a visionary card. Because it's a wand, it's very much a card of creativity. We see the lush green branches. I don't want to get too much into the definition here. But for our purposes, if I look at that in the reverse, I might say, you're looking out into the world, but the results are coming in really slowly. And maybe you're feeling like it's just happening too slowly for you. So that's a way of interpreting that card in light of that particular school of thought. I'm going to cover one more. But before I do, I want to back up just a little bit. I apologize. When I'm giving you a definition of a card, please keep in mind this is a very general definition. How a card gets interpreted depends on so many other factors. And so I'm sort of just giving you a basic read of the card. Please don't think that I'm defining it for all intents and purposes in every context, because I'm certainly not doing that. And I certainly don't mean to imply that I am. So the third school of thought I want to talk about today is some people will interpret reverse cards as the same meaning as the upright card, but maybe with more muted or subdued energy. Kind of similar to the last way we did it in terms of the delay. And, you know, it really also depends on the card that you pull. Some cards don't have muted energy. So, for example, if I have the Queen of Swords tends to represent someone who is more mature, more experienced, someone who maybe sometimes stays in their head a little too much, but somebody who is reasonable, logical, but balances that logical, straightforward view of the world with compassion and mercy, because she is the water of air. She's the water being a queen. So if I'm looking at this reversed and I'm thinking of it in terms of muted energy, I might say to somebody, this person seems a little hard, maybe seems a little cold, but sometimes it's more of a facade. Some of this may be intentional. Someone might be trying to protect themselves. Those might just be some ways that I interpret that. I'm sure there are other ways to interpret reverse cards, and I do think it's great to go out there and explore how other people read reversals. I just choose not to read reversals. There's no particular good or bad to it. I'm very comfortable in my life not really reading reversals. I will say, though, that if I have a deck that's all right side up and I do end up getting a reversal, I do read that, because that is very significant to me given the fact that I don't read reversals. I will consider that. And when I interpret a reversal, it's kind of a mix of everything. And that comes from just my experience and using my intuition, and again, looking at the cards that are surrounding that card and the position of that card. I'm going to get a little bit more into spreads and positions in my next video. But reversals are just one of those things that people like to think about or talk about, have opinions about. I will say that one of the reasons you may want to consider using reversals is, that rarely are things in life good or bad, right? Those are definitions that we give events in our lives. But I think using reversals can provide you with a variety of different shades of experience. When you're starting out on tarot, I don't recommend that you use reversals. I think, it's better to build your confidence by getting more comfortable with the upright meanings of the cards before you sort of delve into that. But that's at your discretion, and it's completely based on your comfort level. I would never tell anyone not to read reversals. My goal is to help people feel less intimidated and more comfortable and build their confidence. So that they feel like, yes, this is something that I really, really want to do and I can do. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments. I'll answer as many as I can. I have another video coming very soon about spreads. Hopefully that will answer some of your questions about the whys of spreads, and some of the elements that I mentioned here in this video about spreads will be elaborated on in my next video. So thank you so much for joining me today. And until next time, take care, everyone.